You know, there are quite a few games I want to rant about, but I seem to be having difficulty keeping track of which ones I want to cover, and the thought of maybe writing all of this down never occurs to me, even though it did just then, but that doesn't count because logic. Anyway, back on track. What I'm saying is that Command & Conquer Renegade has been a game that I've wanted to cover ever since I referenced it in my Unreal series. Was that in my Unreal series? Shit, it's been so long. See, the reason why I wanted to cover this one is because I felt that it was a niche spin-off that no one had asked for, but could turn out to be interesting. So let's just quickly go over it before we inevitably get to the cheese, as those of you who have played this will well know. Westwood Studios was a company that was established in 1985 and was best known for developing the overhead strategy gaming series known as Command & Conquer. They would enjoy about 18 years of independence before getting gobbled up by EA, and now no longer exist, much like the franchise itself. And though more Command & Conquers would come out after Westwood went kaput, it just wasn't the same. Even Red Alert 3, with its cheesy acting, general silliness, and Tim Curry trying to escape capitalism by blasting off into space, just wasn't the same as the originals. However, just before Westwood Studios were about to join the junkyard of discarded developers, they tried something different. Now, if you're like me, and you grew up with the Command & Conquer games, but also you liked first-person shooters, then you must have thought at one point, how cool it would have been to have taken part in a Command & Conquer map, but in first person. Well, I did at least. And so did the developers, it seems, as Renegade is just that. Set in the classic Command & Conquer setting, that is, between the Global Defense Initiative and the Brotherhood of Nod, instead of the Cold War setting of Red Alert, you play the part of Captain Nick Havoc. Oh, and there's your cheese. You can't make this stuff up, can you? Who's a loose cannon? Oh god, it keeps going. Who doesn't play by the rules? Okay, so for the rest of this video, I'm going to place a cheese counter in the bottom right corner of the screen and just update it every time something overtly cheesy happens. That way I can just keep going on with the video and not have to cringe every time it happens. So where are we at? I think that's 3 so far? There, moving on. Well, the Brotherhood of Nod and their Black Hand is at it again, by kidnapping the lead scientist in the field of Tiberium research so that they can get him to either make a superweapon or basically turn the main bad guy into a god, who both sounds and looks like a Nazi. So your mission, which you've picked up from a British officer who you don't get on with, is to rescue the scientists from the baddies, along with some help from your squad known as Dead Six, all of whom are misfits from different ethnic backgrounds, such as Nigel Grant, a big tough black guy who carries around a heavy weapon and wears an eye patch for some reason, a sniper whose codename is Deadeye, and an Asian girl who's really good with tech. You've also got Sakura, who was a friend who became an enemy, and then an enemy who became a friend. You'll also eventually rescue the scientist's daughter, who you don't get on with immediately, what with all that sexual tension in the air. And then later on, she decides to become Gordon Freeman. No, that's not cheesy, it's just random. But for further cheese, just play the game and listen to the dialogue. I like 80s action films as much as the next guy, and I loved Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon because of it. But this is just shit! If you really want to know what the story is like, then load up a Command & Conquer map, train up a load of foot soldiers, send them over to the enemy's base, and then play the theme song to Team America while you're doing it. That's pretty much it. It's like if there was a Team America video game that was trying to be serious, but not doing a very good job of it. However, that doesn't mean that it's not fun. Sure, the story was stilton, but at least the gameplay was pretty good. In fact, I remember being quite surprised by how good it was. Usually game devs aren't very good at trying out new genres when they've spent all of their time specialising in one particular field. Like, does anyone remember Spartan Total War? Utter shite it was, and one of the characters' names sounded like he was called Bollocks, but that's for another time. But it just seems that devs who are great at doing one thing aren't too good at another, but Command & Conquer Renegade suggested otherwise. The gunplay was good, still is in fact. There are loads of weapons about the place to hoard, all of which do different things. You could enter and use vehicles, which was a big deal around this time because not many first-person shooters felt that you were responsible enough to use them. There wasn't any upgrades as such, no grinding, no XP, none of that. It was all about your classic run and gun shit. And none of that regenerating health crap either. There's health packs and armor pickups here, baby, and there's keycards that unlock doors of the same colour, and yes, that was a quote from the game. Remember those in games of old? Proper old school FPSing up in here. But if you do remember that time I talked about this game a while back, I praised this game on its use of facial animations. And it has to be said that, at the time of when this game was released, this was considered groundbreaking. Facial mechanics were only just taking off in the early 2000s, and even then, it was a bit awkward, stiff, and in some cases, hilarious. But Renegade always stood out for me for having some of the best facial animations I've ever seen. I'm even going to go so far as to say that this game did facial mechanics better than Mass Effect Andromeda, but that's only because f*** that game. So I looked up which engine this game ran on, and as it turns out, it was run on something called W3D, which meant Westwood 3D engine. You might also remember this engine popping up in other games, such as Earth and Beyond? It got a ridiculous overhaul after Renegade though, and became called something else to the point where this update might as well have been a completely different engine entirely, but even then, the feel and look of this game couldn't really be felt anywhere else. Which is a shame considering how good those facials were, and I do love me a good facial. Not today though, god no. Any game today showing off those facials would be a laughingstock. But it's a shame that this game had made what I considered to be a breakthrough in facial animations, to then have EA go, right, that's enough of that, and throw it away. But this is EA we're talking about here, so I guess I'm not surprised. The maps are pretty big though, and each level feels like you're getting your money's worth out of it. The overall content's pretty good, all things considering. The single player campaign is a decent length, and there's a multiplayer mode too, which is pretty much exactly an online classic Command & Conquer map but in first person, except you can't build stuff. You can blow up buildings. There's always that, so make sure you're registered with GameSpy. Yeah, and while you're at it, why not download some music from Napster? In fact, I'd say that Renegade was one of the best first-person multiplayers that featured vehicles for its time, right up until Unreal Tournament 2004 came along and did it better. But having said that, there is quite a bit wrong with this game. As far as bugs go, there aren't that many, unless you're playing on a modern PC, in which case you're in for a hard-fought battle ahead of you just trying to get the fucking thing to work. But even after you do go into it, the difficulty in the second half of the game really ramps up. Even on normal difficulty, this game can get a bit unforgiving at times, with some really dirty enemy placements, and the enemies can snipe you from miles away without you even realising they were there. Meaning that the only way you'll be progressing in some levels is by raping the quick save button to the death. Also, I know I said it before, but fuck me, the dialogue. Have Spence his whole time in cutscenes either banging on about how awesome he is,
guess size doesn't matter,
or how much Sakura loves him,
she's crazy about me,
or just stating the obvious.
Yep, she's pissed.
No shit.
Real pissed.
No shit. Sydney Mobius can fuck right off. There was a time when movies thought that sexual tension in media can only be portrayed by the two characters arguing all the fucking time like it's some sort of James Bond movie. There's banter, and then there's constantly arguing, and will you two just fuck already so I don't have to listen to this shit anymore? Also never really understood the need to have any friendly AI characters present, particularly those from Dead 6. Sure, Deadeye's great with a sniper rifle, but do you know who else is really good with a sniper rifle, but also has a ton of weapons on him? This guy. If the game is giving you an option of carrying around an entire armory on your back, then surely it wants you to just pop a cap in as many asses as possible. What it's not suggesting you do is to employ strategic maneuvering. Even regular Command & Conquers don't need strategy. Just get a massive horde and march forth, job done. So why give me a load of others to apparently help me out when what it really means is that I'm babysitting a lot of them? We're supposed to be tough, manly men who are manly but also men. What we're not supposed to be doing is running a mercenary daycare centre. In conclusion, this game was quite underrated for its time, and most FPS players weren't willing to try a game from a strategy genre, while the Command & Conquer fans weren't exactly keen on it as it wasn't true Command & Conquer. So while I'll say that being a fan of both FPS games and Command & Conquer, I actually really like this one, it's safe to say that this one was a commercial fail, and naturally led to the supposed sequel being cancelled. Some would say don't quit your day job on this one, but I'm actually glad we had it. Though it's mature rock fort from start to finish and ends where two cool guys don't look at explosions, and just in time for tea and medals, it's definitely one of those games where you're there just to have fun and not take things too seriously. If you like first-person shooters, if you like the Command & Conquer setting, if you want to see something a bit different, and if you like copious helpings of cheese, then yeah, this is going to be a recommendation from Bree. Hey, what the fuck?
Sometimes I think this life is killing me.